Needless Things Podcast. Hey, Phantomaniacs, welcome to the newest episode of the Needless Things Podcast, where we talk about toys, movies, music, and all manner of pop culture dorkery. I am your host, Dave, and I gotta say, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm still not 100%, but I'm back to like normal functionality. Feeling pretty good. So, this week's episode had a different plan initially, because which will still be happening in a couple of weeks here, but I had to change course because last week's episode, if you remember, was me talking to Mike Gordon about sort of the history of Star Trek toys. Not massive detail, but our memories of it, highlights of Star Trek toys over the years, and a little bit of speculation about Playmates Toys relaunching their Star Trek toy license. And that happened on Monday. Playmates made, on Instagram, revealed the first wave of figures, vehicles, and role-play items. They went up for pre-order on Entertainment Earth. And then after Mike and I talked, they went up for pre-order on BigBadToyStore.com, which I'll talk about a little bit in a second. So I got on with Mike because there was enough that I felt like, you know what, we need to sit down, we need to talk about what this is. And just do maybe like a mini cast. I haven't done one of those in, I don't even know how long. It's probably been a couple of years now, just because when the pandemic happened, it threw everything off and there just wasn't the necessity for those mini cast episodes like there was before. And what ended up happening is we had enough to talk about to do a full episode. So now this week's episode is myself and Mike Gordon essentially reviewing and detailing the Star Trek universe line from Playmates Toys. We get really in-depth about what it is, what they've done, what we expect, what we think of everything that's been offered. And I will say they are now available for pre-order on BigBadToyStore.com, which is my personal favorite. Nothing against Entertainment Earth, but just Big Bad in general tends to work a little bit better for me. But they are a little bit more expensive on Big Bad. So you can pre-order from Entertainment Earth and pay their what I find to be very expensive shipping when the time comes, or you can pay a little bit more for the actual figures or whatever from Big Bad and get their flat rate $4 shipping when the time comes. And that's what I opted to do because I'm not ordering the whole entire line, but you'll have to wait until my conversation with Mike to find out what I'm definitely getting. So there you go. That's a little bit about what's going on this week. A few other things that are going on this week. Check out the Needless Things YouTube channel. On Monday, I reviewed from McFarlane Toys their Gold Label Year 2 Batman, which is a Batman figure based on a Todd McFarlane Batman design. It's a very impressive figure. There are a couple little things I wasn't crazy about, but go watch the video and you'll see what I'm talking about. On Wednesday, because Wednesday is Boba Fett Day, except, oh gosh, how spoilery can I get? Well, by the time you're hearing this, that episode will have been out for 3 days, basically. So, you know what? If spoilers for the newest episode of Boba Fett, kind of. So I put the new Black Series Boba Fett review up on Wednesday, because Wednesday is Book of Boba Fett. It's Boba Fett Day. And of course, this week's episode, no Boba Fett. But whatever, it doesn't matter. It's up on the Needless Things YouTube channel. You can check out the figure as he appeared at the end of The Mandalorian. Or I guess not even at... Yeah. No. When he first showed up on The Mandalorian. Because he does get his armor at the end of The Mandalorian. So this is his look when we first see him again. And then a surprise review went up on Thursday of... That was my pathetic drum roll. The G.I. Joe Classified Series Bat. Wow. This is one of my most anticipated figures in a while, although there are some even more anticipated that I'll talk about in a minute. But I had a great time reviewing this figure. There were some weird... I don't know what happened with the audio. At the end, it was off by a couple of seconds, like over the course of the video, and I don't know exactly where it happened. So it cut off the last couple seconds of the video where I do my sort of sign-off type thing, but it worked. It still works. Like, it's still very watchable and makes sense. And then there are a couple of little, like, staticky, blurpy noises that happen. I don't know what the deal is. I've never had trouble with. I mean, I've only had this phone for a few months now, but I've never had any trouble with the audio or with the Bluetooth headset or anything like that. It was just a freak occurrence. And I think the next review I do, well, actually, this just occurred to me to do this. The next review I do is going to be for the Secret Service Snake Eyes reaction figure from Super 7, a super weird figure that you're going to want to check out on the Needless Things YouTube channel. So I'm going to, and that'll be a shorter review. So I'm going to kind of test out and make sure everything works the way it's supposed to work, and I don't need to make some kind of nightmarish adjustment to the technology I'm using to make these toy reviews. But anyway, Needless Things YouTube channel, go check it out. And I also want to put over one per case on Instagram. That's Jay's Armory. They make custom accessories, and I ordered from them on Etsy a clear chest plate to go with that bat, because it does not come with a clear chest plate. It has a black one and then a black battle damaged one. And, you know, those are cool, but I gotta be able to see all that stuff in the bat's chest. So I ordered a 5-pack of those, and I love it. It's great. So I just want to put them over real quick. That's Jay's Armory, or one per case on Instagram. Go check them out. Mad Balls. Speaking of highly anticipated figures, I have been talking about Premium DNA's Mad Balls figures for 2 years now, I think. I pre-ordered them and was a little nervous about it because the pre-order was going through Megalopolis Toys, who has a terrible reputation. I don't even know, do they even exist anymore? Let me do a little Google here and see if this place even exists. They had such a bad reputation. Yeah, they're still there online. Shop now, Megalopolis store. Oh, well, no, it looks like they kind of don't exist anymore, because all they have are a bunch of Megalopolis Toys t-shirts and apparel. So anyway, Megalopolis Toys was an extremely shady, untrustworthy, bad toy retailer. And they partnered with some creatives to launch several different action figure lines, updates of 80s toy lines. And these Mad Balls figures it's a full figure. It's not just a Mad Ball. It's got a body, fully articulated, incredible detailing, incredible paint. They look amazing. They are not here yet. They should arrive today within the next 3 hours, and hopefully they will be my reviews next week on the Needless Things YouTube channel. But now Premium DNA has taken over from Megalopolis. I don't think has anything to do with this anymore, except they handled the fulfillment of the pre-orders from the Mad Balls. Now Premium DNA is running not only these Mad Balls, but also Barnyard Commandos, Earthworm Jim, Battletoads. I'm pulling up their website now. There is a Mad Balls versus Garbage Pail Kids figure line launching Saturday, the 29th. This is really wild. I'll get to it in a second. But for right now, I just want to finish up with their licenses that they've got. So, okay. So that looks like about it right now is the Barnyard Commandos, the Battletoads, and they had several other licenses, but they're not active now because I think that Premium DNA is very interested in, let's get everything back on track. Let's build our customers' faith in what we're doing, then we'll continue forward with the other licenses we have. And I know Earthworm Jim was one of them. I cannot remember. There were a couple more, but you know, we'll know once they're ready to make some announcements and stuff. But the point is, they're delivering the Mad Balls. They're on their way. It's been a frustrating process, but they're on their way. I ordered the Hornhead Monster Edition, which is the Hornhead figure from the first wave of Mad Balls, but it is painted in My Pet Monster colors. It looks fantastic, and I was like, you know what? This is in stock. I'm going to order it now. They haven't shipped it yet. It hasn't been a week quite yet, but I'm really trying to give these guys the benefit of the doubt because these figures look incredible. They are on the way. So I've got nothing but the best wishes for these guys, and I hope that everything that they do is a success, because they're into the stuff that I'm into, and they seem to be really into making quality toys of the stuff that I'm into. So of course I want that to succeed. So like I said, those Mad Balls should be here, or Mad Balls figures should be here today. I will get them reviewed today or Sunday, or today and Sunday, and then they'll go up next Monday through Thursday. So it'll be another, because normally on the Needless Things YouTube channel, Monday and Wednesday are review days, but sometimes when I have like a full wave of something, you'll get Monday through Thursday, and that'll be the case next week with these Mad Balls figures. So tune in for that. I also want to mention, speaking of independent toy companies, there is a company called Ramen Toy, and they've got a little bit of a checkered past themselves. I don't like to get too much into the drama side of the toy business if I haven't been involved personally, because with the Mad Balls, I pre-ordered from day one and have been dealing with those frustrations the whole time. So that affected me. I can speak to that from personal experience. Ramen Toys offered a series of figures called 80s Commanders that are based off of the Centurions line from the 80s. They've already produced and sent out the first wave. People have them. Apparently they're great. And then they offered a second wave that looks much more like the original Centurions action figures. Like, basically exactly like, but with, they've got more articulation, but they look phenomenal. And that first wave, the colors were a little off. The head sculpts didn't look just like the original figures. They were clearly inspired by Centurions, but didn't really feel like, oh, these are updated versions. Whereas this second wave, these look like updated modern versions of the Centurions. And I'm so tempted to order these things, but I'm really trying to narrow, and I say this at the beginning of every single year, I'm trying to narrow down what I collect because there's just too much. But anyway, so Ramen Toys, apparently a lot of people who got in on those first 80s Commanders were a little bit upset that they were producing another wave that was better, and the person who runs the company didn't handle it the best. And I saw this interaction on Facebook, and that was one of the things that made me nervous about this whole thing, is the way that they were offering these originally. Like, you had to order through email, which seemed really shady to me. But now they actually have a website, ramentoy.com, and you can go, and I'm clicking right now on the 80s Commanders. It's a normal, you can buy with PayPal, so you'll have your buyer protection. I shouldn't have clicked on that, because now I'm double tempted. And then also, this is very interesting. I think they are working directly with Super 7. Christian actually told me a little bit. Christian from Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast, which is available the first Friday of every month, wherever you get your podcast. Christian said that Super 7 has kind of sort of licensed or shared their Silverhawks license, and Ramen Toys is producing a licensed Quicksilver figure that is very different from the Ultimates figure that Super 7 is producing. This one is basically, it's a modern action figure of Quicksilver from Silverhawks. Like, it's not like the Ultimates where it's trying to look like the cartoon. It's saying, if Silverhawks was a current property, this is what the toy would look like, if that makes sense. And I mean, it looks fantastic. It's $65, which is a little pricey, but again, you've got to think just like just like with Super 7 stuff, it's a smaller run of product, and particularly in the case of Ramen Toy, a much smaller company. So, I don't know. I am not a big enough Silverhawks fan to have bought any of the Silverhawks stuff that's coming out, but it is something to take a look at and be interested in. And this guy will be available April of 2022, and the 80s Commanders also, April 2022 is the date on these, and they're, boy, I'm back on the page, and I'm just so tempted. But get away from me, 80s Commanders. My next note, it's funny, my next note for my intro is Star Trek Universe, which obviously ended up being the whole episode, so I don't need to follow up on that. And then finally, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is Mezco, out of nowhere yesterday, put up a pre-order for a new Conan figure. Now, if you followed along at home, you know that the first 112 Collective Conan faced... I don't know exactly what happened. I do know that I pre-ordered it way back when. So I had one. It came in, and the few people that were receiving these were putting up pictures, and people were going bonkers. And there were sales on eBay. Now, there were some sales for like $480. I think those were fake sales because eBay is just a cesspool of inflated bids, fake buyers, people just like creating fake accounts to drive prices up. So when you go look at the sold prices, they look really, really high. But it looked to me like that Conan was legit selling at around $265. And I say that because that's what I sold mine for. I'm a huge fan of Conan. I like the movies. I have actually read the books. I've got a ton of the comics. I've got Conan statues. I've got a big crazy Conan poster. I like Conan. However, I did not pay $265 for that figure. And to be able to flip it that quickly and get that kind of profit on it, and to feel fairly certain that Mezco was going to be producing another Conan at some point, I said, you know what? I'm just going to make a little money right now. So I did. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that might have gone towards the Thunder Tank. If those two things happened right around the same time, I think that's a possibility. Because to get Super 7's Thunder Tank, my deal with myself was I have to sell enough stuff to pay for the Thunder Tank. None of this is going to come out of pocket, but if I'm willing to part with enough things to pay for the Thunder Tank, I'll get it. And I did. So anyway, there's a new Conan. I was right, and it is incredible. This is Conan the Conqueror, and it comes with about as many accessories as you've ever seen with a 112 Collective figure. It's got 2 different loincloths, 3 different belts, 3 different heads, 2 different cloaks, tons of weapons, a gorgeous figure. I imagine it's using pretty much the same body as the first one, which is fine. I don't care because, this one looks a little more scarred up than the first one. I don't know that this is the same body. Come on, next picture. Okay, tons of weapons, like 2 different swords, a dagger, an axe, 2 flails, a shield. What are the earrings, maybe? Or I don't even know what these are. So much stuff, it's insane. Wrist wraps, 2 different necklaces, 2 different loincloths, 1 furry and 1 leathery. Big furry cloak, and then a hooded shroud. Just crazy. So I ordered it. And the pre-order, if you are listening to this the day it dropped, and I certainly hope you would be, if you're listening to this the day it dropped, the 28th of January, you have, I believe, until midnight tonight. It is currently an open pre-order. And this is supposed to ship between August and October of 2022. Now, obviously, we need a heaping spoonful of salt to go along with that ship date. You know how it is. The pandemic is still affecting things. Shipping is still insane. Nothing is arriving when it's supposed to be. It's all crazy. Do you guys know what I saw yesterday in Walmart? Yesterday in Walmart, they had the turkey-shaped turkey nuggets, the frozen turkey nuggets that people were looking for around Thanksgiving. They were in the freezer at Walmart. That shit should have been there over 2 months ago. And Walmart just now is getting the turkey nuggets. And then there was another Thanksgiving item right beside it in one of the end cap coolers. So that's how messed up shipping is, you guys. Turkey nuggets are 2 months late. Why didn't I take a picture of this and post it? I was in a hurry. I didn't have time for social media, which is probably one of the reasons why Needless Things is not bigger than it is. Sometimes I just don't have time. Most times I don't have time for things like that would launch me into the internet stratosphere. So anyway, I think that's about all I've got for an intro this week. Like I said, I'm feeling a whole lot better. Next week, we will have the return of Love Songs. I don't know what I'm calling the episode yet, but our music crew is getting back together, and we're going to give you the second edition of the Needless Things Valentine's playlist, whatever that may be. The week after that should be the return of the Needless Commentary. Unfortunately, it will still be Swayzuary. And then the week after that, if the schedule holds up, Clown is Down will be returning to the show. That was actually supposed to be recorded this week, and then lots of things came together to move things around. This year, well, really the last year, but this year is a constantly shifting schedule for Needless Things. But that's okay because we keep it tight around here. You guys, thank you for hanging in there, for being part of the show. Join the Needless Things Podcast Facebook group where you can follow along, and I'll do some more polls really soon now that I'm feeling better. And I understand you're thinking to yourself, really, you're sick and you can't do a poll on Facebook? Yes, that's correct. I just don't have it in me. I just don't. Or I'm too mad at myself for not taking a picture of turkey nuggets. That kind of self-loathing just prevents you from doing anything. So anyway, I'm going to go upstairs, see if my mad balls are here yet. While I do that, you guys grab yourself a nice glass of Romulan ale and enjoy Mike and I breaking down the brand new Star Trek Universe line from Playmates Toys. All right, we got to get right down to it. Mike Gordon, welcome back.
Howdy. I'm glad to be back. Long time no see.
Yeah, right? Well, we're going to be seeing a lot of each other because we've got, you're going to be our special guest on a little something coming up soon here as well.
Very nice. I'm excited.
I didn't even realize when I asked you that you watched the last, well, I guess it wasn't the last one, 2 years ago, I think. The Swayzuary movie. Red Dawn.
I did see Red Dawn with you guys.
Yeah.
That was a blast.
So this is a nice little follow-up. But that's not what we're following up tonight. Tonight, we're following up last week's episode, which, by the way, I didn't even plan that. Like, I knew that Playmates would be announcing that, we talked about it. They'd be announcing their new Star Trek line soonish. I had no idea it was going to be literally 2 days after that episode dropped. It just worked out perfectly. And that's why we're back here tonight, because on Monday, the 24th, Playmates officially announced their Star Trek Universe line, which in some ways is what we expected, and in other ways is not anything that we discussed. When I sent you those pictures, when you saw them for the first time, what was your initial reaction?
Because I hadn't, when you sent me the pictures, I hadn't seen or heard anything yet. So I didn't know that the news had broke yet. So I knew it was coming, but the first thing I saw, of course, I think because it was their first picture, was Khan, and I was like, of course. Looking at these images, the selection of figures that they're doing makes sense as far as Kirk, Spock, Picard, Data, Khan, and then two from, I guess, Discovery.
And Riker.
Yes, Riker. Don't forget number one.
And for the listeners, as of this recording, these are available for pre-order from entertainmentearth.com and nowhere else that I've seen yet. You can rest assured Big Bad Toy Store, which is my personal favorite, will probably have them. Dorkside might have them. They are going to be available from online retailers in July and kind of in stores and everywhere else in the fall. So as of right now, if you want to absolutely positively guarantee yourself a set of these figures, entertainmentearth.com is the place to go. So let's talk about the figures, and also if you want to see the best pictures of them, because Entertainment Earth's pictures are a little bit better than what Playmates released. You can see the details and the portraits a little better, I think. They've got close-up shots you can alternate to and the likenesses are, they're not photorealistic. This is not the Black Series, which is kind of what I think we both. I don't know that we assumed that, but we were kind of thinking surely that's what they're going to do. But instead of that, they are essentially doing a modernized version of the original Playmates Star Trek line.
Yeah, I mean, these are not compatible. These figures are not compatible with their previous large line of figures, which were what we said 4.
Well, no, these are.
I thought these are 5 inches.
Well, they're the same scale as that line.
I thought
those lines, those figures are just shy of 5 inches.
Gotcha. Because the thing I was looking at, I was under the impression that they weren't the same.
No, they are. Now, stylistically, they're not. They have elbow joints, knee joints. It's actually been a little bit difficult to tell how the ankles look like they're articulated. They have better hip joints, but as far as the size goes, these are the same as that first line.
Okay, because the thing I saw said that these are 1 1/14 scale, and the original Playmates were 1/16, 1 1/16.
Well, I think
so. They're slightly off.
Scale is a really tough thing, and until we have these, because there are so many. First of all, so many action figure lines claim to be 6-inch scale. 6 inches is not a scale. It is a height.
Right.
A scale is 1/12, and there's so many lines that claim to be 1/12 scale. There is one action figure line that is truly 1/12 scale, and that's Mezco's 1/12 Collective. But then you also have like these 6-ish inch figures like Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, which, by the way, are not the same size. Those two are not compatible with one another because Marvel Legends are larger than Star Wars Black Series. And we may have that kind of difference between these figures and the original Playmates, but kind of the point is this is a scale that's unique and doesn't go with anything else that's out there.
That's the point. Though these are not. Yes, sorry. That's what. Regardless of exactly what scale they are, they're not the same scale as the classic Playmates. We'll call them, I guess, for simplistic first.
Well, I don't know. We won't know that for sure until they're in hand. I still think they're going to end up being that size.
But even as you say, if the size is the same, these don't look like those figures.
Right. And that's the profile of them. They're not going to stand on the shelf together, at least not in my collection, because I can't even put like DC Universe Classics with DC Direct figures. I can't do it because they're so aesthetically different to my eyes. So these, and you know what? As much as I would have liked for these to be able to just stand next to like Black Series figures, this is my Star Trek collection. I don't need it to go with anything else because they're going to be on their own shelves.
I will admit that I was looking forward to having a 6-inch Khan next to my 6-inch Thrawn. Like I just thought that would be, that would be pretty badass. But it looks like Thrawn is going to have a few centimeters on him.
Well, here's another thing to consider though. This is the kickoff of Playmates New Year's with the Star Trek license. Right now, if you walk into a store, you can find 3 different Masters of the Universe action figure lines in different scales. So there's nothing stopping Playmates from, after they do these for 6 months, a year, whatever, launching a more photorealistic collector-friendly line.
It's kind of crazy. As far as the I don't know if
Mike, just for another example, real quick, there are currently, you can walk into a store and there are into a Target. Well, no, Target doesn't carry the retro, but there are 3 different sizes of G.I. Joe figures. There are 3 different styles of Star Wars figures. There are the retros, there's vintage collection, there's Black Series. And that's not even counting all of the hot toys and all that kind of business.
Sure. No, I get it. And it's one of those things that's, kind of just one of those things. It depends on your point of view. Like you said, if you want to just put all your Star Trek figures together from this line and display them, that looks fine. If you want to mix and match with other lines, then yeah, it's not going to work as well. And that's regardless of any toy line.
Right.
But looking at these figures, I mean, you said like, okay, so maybe they'll come up with something a little bit bigger that's a little bit more photorealistic. I will say, just because the first thing I looked at was the Khan figure.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that is damn good.
It's beautiful.
It's a great sculpt. The face is Khan, is Ricardo Montalban's Khan.
Well, forget the face, the pecs.
The pecs, like the broken Federation insignia, like that. It is just really like looking at the top half of this figure. I couldn't be happier. I mean, this looks like a great Khan figure.
And for the bottom half, like for the listeners, when you see these pictures, I think they just have him standing a little funny.
Yeah, the bottom half is where I'm like,
I think that, and this. You would be amazed how often this happens with action figures, especially action figure reveals when they're showing off the first prototypes or whatever. It's almost like the people that work for the toy companies that take the pictures are not photographers. And they may not be. They may just be like marketing or media people. But so often, the first pictures we see of any action figure line, they're in these weird poses, or the lighting is bad, or they're not. It's so strange.
Yeah, because it's just his legs look weird. The way that they're, the way that they're posed or whatever.
He's like reverse bow-legged, and it looks like he's got good childbirth and hips.
Yeah. So that's,
but if you look at the other figures, you can see they have the same articulation, but their stance is different. So I think it's just what they did with Khan.
But as far as his hands goes, the glove, the sort of the watch sort of band that he has, like all that stuff, like the detail on this is really great, especially for the price point. I mean, I know we haven't talked about price yet, but I was thinking, oh my God, these are going to be like $20-$30 figures or whatever. And I'm really happy that, at least when you go to, as you said, the site Entertainment Earth, these are really like reasonable. They're like they got this for $15.99 for these figures, and I'm like, that seems like too reasonable, really.
Well, and here's the thing that we have to consider that does give this scale an advantage. It does allow that lower price point, and Entertainment Earth is usually a little bit more expensive. So these may be, $14.99 retail. They're not going to be a whole lot less, but $15 is a really nice price point for a collector-oriented action figure right now, and they haven't even shown the accessories yet.
And even so, and the packaging.
Yes,
the $15 price point, and more importantly, is not only reasonable for a collector; it's reasonable for a casual person.
Yes,
this
Khan is going to fly off the pegs or shelves or internet or whatever.
Yes, I believe so. I believe all these figures will, except for maybe Riker.
Well, no, Riker will, because the only Playmates. Well, first of all, Playmates never did great versions of these uniforms. I think these are the post-season 3 uniforms. And every Riker they made had a really weird stance. And I think we even talked about it on the episode that he looks like he's about to do the Riker sit.
Yeah.
And this
you
one,
say weird stance, but I'm like, that's accurate.
But these figures actually have hip articulation that allows them to just stand upright normally.
Yeah. I meant no disrespect to Riker as a character, or even as this figure. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the Federation figures yet, but I think it looks sharp. I think it looks pretty good. It's a great likeness. It's the bearded one, so it's not like, first season one. It's not season 1 Riker. It's definitely next generation Riker. This is before, prior to this is not the Riker we see in Picard or later on commanding a starship or whatever. like from the movies. So it's a classic, what you think of when you think of Next Generation outfit. But like I said, Riker's not, like I would say in my mind anyway, I just found it odd that he was selected as a as a first waiver.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna pick, if you're gonna pick three from the original series, so you've got Kirk and Spock. Those are no brainers. You have the best villain, maybe the best villain of the whole
Star
franchise.
Trek. Yeah, you're right.
The whole franchise is Khan, so that's a no brainer. And then you go with Next Generation, you're like, oh, who are the three we're going to pick? Well, obviously obviously Picard and Data. That's a no brainer. For the next one, I'm not thinking Riker. He's not in my top 10. Sorry.
Wow.
It's like you go with a bad guy. You go with an alien race. You go with something else that's a little bit like cooler.
Okay, I would, and I really wonder. I'd love to hear from the listeners. Hit us up at Needless Things Podcast on Twitter. I'd really like to hear people's opinions on this, because I feel like Riker would be a very common choice, very popular choice. I would have gone Picard, Riker, and a Borg, or Q, or I would have put an interesting looking alien in there to really make this line.
Yeah, if you're going to stick with the crew, go with Worf. Worf would be great. Yeah, Worf is Worf is one that went on. He went on 2 shows, series.
Yeah,
Deep Space Nine as well. So you got that covered. Like, I think.
Matter of fact, you're right. I would have done Picard, Riker, and Deep Space Nine Worf, because then you can go back for Next Generation Worf later on, but you can show, hey, we're representing everything here.
Yeah, I think having a Klingon is kind of important as well. I mean, nothing says Star Trek like Klingons. So I'm just surprised that Riker is a choice here. I would have rather seen a Klingon personally.
Yeah, you've got a good point. It would be nice, because that's one of the most common complaints about all of the Star Wars lines now, is we don't see a lot of interesting aliens or droids. It's a lot of humans, a lot of troopers, and that's it. And that was one of the magical things about Star Wars when we were kids, was all of those crazy alien figures that were in the movie for like a second in the cantina. They made figures of those. And Star Trek has the opportunity, Playmates has the opportunity with Star Trek to really get some awesome aliens out there and honestly fill a void in the market right now.
And as a kid, I mean, I was always attracted to the ones that were alien looking. And
they're more toyetic.
Yeah, I think so. And that's a word. I like it.
It is a word.
Because I used to play with those all the time, and you would have adventures. I think that's one of the reasons why Boba Fett became as huge as he did, because he just started off as a little toy that he's cool looking and just captured the imagination of all of us. And now finally, like decades later, one of those kids that was playing with him as a toy has made him into a show. Now finally, decades later, he's just a dude. He's just a dude. That's a man. Thank you for showing me that picture of Boba Fett without his helmet on, because I was asking someone the other day if they ever made one of those. Yes, I wasn't aware. I figured at some point there was a Boba Fett without, like, I was thinking younger Boba Fett. There must be a figure of which they did as well. They've done a Daniel Logan, but they also did a Timur Morris. It's weird. It's a vintage collection, Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett, but it had a removable helmet with Timur Morrison's likeness under it. Gotcha. And that was at least a decade ago, I think. So that it has been done, and they have used his likeness. It's consistent. We can't get into Boba Fett right now. We got to keep talking about Star Trek. Yeah. So let's So looking at, since we're on the subject of the Next Generation, I'm looking at Picard now. He looks great. Again, a great likeness in the face. I love the expressive-ness in not all of the faces, but some of the faces. The eyes. Let me tell you, the eyes are tricky to get on a lot of figures in general, I find, and the ones that I'm looking at here, the eyes are great. And I'm glad they decided to go with, I think it's third season uniforms.
I
So
believe so.
You've got the actual like 2-piece instead of just the one jumpsuit outfit. So I like the choice there. I think they look great. It's not a question of like, I question the size of them more than I do the likeness, because I think the likeness is beautiful. And I would have liked, to be honest with you, I would have liked him to be just another inch higher, 6 inches.
Yeah, I'm not, well, I don't know. I'm torn because I wouldn't want because these are, I don't want to say simplified because they look very nice, but they are not, like I said, that photoreal Black Series style or the MCU Marvel Legends. They're not that.
No.
So I don't think
close.
But I don't think this style would look as good in 6 inches.
And they wouldn't.
I think if you magnified these details, they wouldn't look as sharp. They wouldn't look as nice. So I'm kind of happy with this form factor.
You're probably right about that. You're probably right. If I did get a 6-inch con that was in the same sort of style, everything the same as what I'm seeing here, and I did put him next to the Thrawn, he would look kind of junky.
Well, you would have something like what I was talking about on the episode last week. Those Cobra Kai figures that Playmates did that are a larger scale, but have this level of detail and don't look great as a result. I think this smaller stature does these well. Now let me break down the articulation as best I can from these pictures, because I've been going through everybody, because you can't tell from any one figure exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. It looks like we've got a ball joint at the top of the neck. You've got hinge and swivel shoulders that are very nicely concealed. There's not a big ugly joint at the top on any of them. The elbows have a hinge and then a swivel at the top of the elbow. And then the wrists, it look like, are just swivels. I would imagine there's a swivel at the waist, but these are so clean, I can't completely tell. And then the hips have, again, a hinged swivel, but they have that, the crotch joint very similar to Super 7's Ultimates that has a much better range than the original cut joints on the Playmates Star Trek figures. And then the knee joints, again, you've got the hinge with the swivel at the top. And then I am seeing it. It took me getting to data to see it, because you can't really see the ankles too well on any of them. But the ankles have what looks like what I refer to as a modern ankle joint, which is a hinged peg, and the foot is on a swivel at the end of the peg. So you actually have lateral movement with the feet. It's not just the up and down. It's also the side to side, because it's on a little peg. That's what it looks like on Data's. His ankles are giving me the best look here. I've never before checked out Brent Spiner's ankles. That's not my thing. That's not one of my kinks, but I'm into it tonight.
Well, and I think you're right. I mean, I was looking at that too, and they do say there's 14 points, and so it makes sense. Each one of those is what you mentioned all of them. So
and they've maximized each one, it seems like, while maintaining a nice profile. And that's one of my gripes with modern action figures, is some of them, in my opinion, and it's all personal taste, in my opinion, some of them have too much articulation, and it takes away from an actual nice looking character. And I think these have kind of hit the best of both worlds.
Ha! Nice reference.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, I do. I think it's funny you mentioned the Data figure, because I think maybe that's my least favorite.
He looks 12.
Yeah, he looks like he's got a sort of dare I say girlish face, boyish face.
But it doesn't not look like Data. It's just a little weird. And the thing we have to keep in mind, we don't know what these are. We don't know if these are prototypes. We don't know if these are finished product.
It's true.
So until we have them in hand, which, by the way, you'll be able to find reviews of all of these on the Needless Things YouTube channel as soon as they are available. until we have them in hand, we don't know for sure how sharp some of these details will be, how accurate these pictures are. Like we said, they haven't even showed the accessories yet. Now, my hope for the accessories is that we get phasers that are not attached to giant pink phaser beams like the old Playmates ones. But I mean, I think you can count on, since they are basing this on the nostalgia for that 90s line, I think we can probably count on a pretty decent selection of accessories to come with these as well. Because if you remember, they got to be more detailed. Because if you remember the Playmates figures, like Riker would come with, they were all blue.
They're all
blue. It was like a blue phaser, a blue tricorder, a blue egg, like all of them. And I would imagine these are going to have more deco, or at least be more realistic colors, because that was again influenced by the Ninja Turtles' success and the fact that their accessories were all kind of that uniform, a little more toyetic. It was at the time, but now I think collectors are going to want more realistic looking phasers and tricorders and what have you.
Yeah, it's easy for me to look at the con figure, and the face is so well sculpted, as is just his torso, that I don't find that the rest of the line is as sculpted as detailed as that one is. So you're right. I don't know when it's gonna look like. As far as sorry, I'm looking at I guess it's Saru from Discovery. I'm not really familiar with that series as much, but he looks his feet look odd. I don't know if that's a stand that he's on or something.
It's what his feet look like. I had to look that up.
Oh wow. Okay.
He has wild feet like that.
Gotcha.
It's his species. It's their form. Yeah, because I noticed that too, and I was like, did they just do a bad job of removing the background from this image? But then I looked it up.
Exactly what I thought.
And that's what his feet look like.
So
and he looks great. Like, we were talking about needing weird aliens.
Yeah.
He's a great example. Like, I haven't gone back to Discovery since we watched that first episode. I intend to. I really do want to check it out and give it a chance. But this guy this is a great looking figure. You talk about toyetic. These big blue eyes, this alien look. He's tall, he's lanky. This is, it's not a character I'm super familiar with, but it's one of the coolest figures in the line so far.
Yes, I agree. And it even makes me more surprised that they went with Riker instead of a Romulan.
More people like Riker than your.
No, I'm not. I'm a Jonathan Frakes fan. I like Riker a lot. I feel like in a lot of ways he was underutilized in the series in some ways. I'm a big fan of his, but yeah, I just question his inclusion here. But that's fine. Number one is in the first line, in the first wave. So in some ways that makes a lot of sense.
And as of now, we have no idea what Playmates has in store. As far as we know, these hit in July, and then we've got 2 more waves before the end of the year. There's no telling how much they've already invested into this and what their plans are. So, because if you think about it, we're still 3 weeks away, or 4 weeks. No, we're still 4 weeks away from when Toy Fair would have been.
All right.
So this could just be a little taste. There could be a whole big plan coming just in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm not saying there is, but it's a possibility, because I can't imagine Playmates Toys showing up to Toy Fair with just this. And I'm not saying this isn't impressive, but for a Toy Fair presentation, this is relatively minimal, especially for something as big and special as relaunching one of the great toy franchises.
The press release that I saw said that it says the first wave in the Star Trek Universe collection will be available online in July and in stores this fall. Additional figures and accessories scheduled for release in early 2023 will be announced later this year.
Okay.
So exactly when, who knows? But the point is, there's more to come. They are, they're not just going to be like, let's see how these do and wait. No, they're So I would imagine the second, third wave we're going to see. If we don't see a Klingon in that second wave, I'm like, what are you doing? This is Star Trek, right?
and with the continuing supply chain issues, it's possible that they didn't want to get too far ahead of themselves. And we could see maybe they're saving more. But I think San Diego Comic-Con's already been canceled, or has it?
I don't know.
Has it not? I don't know.
Sure.
But that may be the plan. Okay, Toy Fair's a bust. We'll save everything for Comic-Con now, and then see what happens there.
Let me, before we sort of talk about the other things, do you think who are these toys for?
Okay, any toy that is going to make it to the likes of Target and Walmart is for children.
Okay.
No matter
by
what
children, you mean like
no matter what anybody tells you, toy lines that are going to be mass market have to be something that kids are interested in, and that Mom and Uncle Bob will be like, oh, Junior would like this, and buy. That's why there's so many Batmans in any Batman line.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, that you look at the DC Multiverse line, you're like, oh, those are pretty fancy. Those must be for collectors. Well, sure, they have collectors in mind. I'm not saying they don't plan for collectors, but kids have to be buying this stuff too. And when I say kids, I mean basically like 12 and under. People who have birthday parties that their friends come to.
Yep.
And then the hope is that you hook those kids in, and then they turn into older collectors who use their disposable income on dumb things for the rest of their lives. Yes. Like me.
Like us.
Yes. Like us. You can see my background, and I can see your background.
Exactly. I will tell you that as much as I sort of like what they're doing, overall with the figures themselves, I'm interested in the Khan figure. I don't see myself buying any of the others.
Really? Not even the Wrath of Khan, Kirk, and Spock? Because to me, that's showing a commitment of, we're starting Wrath of Khan. We understand how important it is, and hopefully they'll get through the crew like I was talking about. So you don't see yourself walking into Target and being like, oh, look, they've got Khan and Kirk and Spock, and just being like, you know what? I got to get all three.
No, and I'll tell you why. Because
you just hurt my toy collector heart.
I'm sorry. I mean, it takes all kinds, but as far as me goes, I go right, and I'm a lot
now.
More,
Migos are a whole other thing, Mike Gordon.
As far as because I'm a lot more of a casual or limited toy guy than you. So, so I'm looking at these figures and I'm thinking, all right, well, like I said, I want a figure that I can display, put on my shelf, put on my desk, whatever. Look at and all that. I'm breaking him out of the packaging,
of course
he's roaming free. And that, like, just like my Thrawn figure is here, these are not detailed enough for me to be satisfied with having them on my shelf in that way. They're great for kids to play with, I think, much like the Playmates were, in the original line.
Yeah.
Because they definitely represent who they're supposed to. But as far as, really detailed, like I would pay twice as much for a figure, like an inch taller and a little bit more detailed.
Yeah. And I see what you're saying, because not everybody is a lunatic like me that enjoys everything from a 5 points of articulation GI Joe figure to a sideshow Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yeah.
If
these are a little bit better than reaction figures, but they're in the middle between reaction and like Black Series.
And you're right. You've got a really good point, because I mean, what I said about being sold to kids holds true, but you do have to hook in the Star Trek fan base. And you're right. These are not what modern adult toy collectors look at as the equal to the market right now.
Yeah, they're not Black Series. I mean, we keep saying that. I mean, that is, in my mind, that's the easiest way to put it. Like, that's the sort
Yeah.
of best of what you can get for that price range. I mean,
Well, it's the closest parallel to what we were expecting.
Yeah, exactly. So I would be curious to see how well they do. I mean, the Star Trek isn't making a lot of shows for kids these days.
Right.
I don't think Discovery is for kids. And I'm just, and the others are, decades old. And I just, sort of wonder how these are going to do. Now, like you said, if you're in the toy aisle and Uncle Frank's like, oh, I remember Star Trek, I'm going to get my nephew one of those. I can see that happening. I can see, someone going, oh, that guy at work reminds me of Spock. I'm going to give him a figure for his birthday, whatever, like, so he can have on his desk, at work or something like that. I can see that happening. But as far as what I'm looking for, something to have on the shelf that makes me go, oh, that's just a great look at, like, that reminds me
of
the character. The con is really close. Like, I am going to be really scoping out this. I'm really in favor of the con figure here, but the rest of them, they're just not as detailed as I would like.
I guess what they've done is banked on Star Trek fans, honestly, probably even younger than me, but certainly my age and younger, who grew up with that original line, and they're banking more on the nostalgia for that line than they are on people who want, like, a really nice con. Which is an interesting choice to have made, because, again, to go back to, we've said it over and over again, but it just seemed like such a no-brainer that they would go that 1/12 scale hyper detailed route. However, here's what goes against that, is that we've had lines that have done that and they have not been overwhelmingly successful. And to tell the truth, as a collector, I have a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth from that scale of Star Trek toys. Because of the difficulty in finding them, the inconsistency of the quality and the look. So this, to me, as somebody who has collected Star Trek toys for 30 years, this to me is honestly a breath of fresh air and earnestness, I think. Because I know Playmates is behind this.
Yes, well, I don't disagree with that. I mean, they have, and especially with their history of the franchise and everything like that. I think a lot, like some folks I've already seen have been complaining because it's not compatible with the old classic Playmates figures. And then you've got people like me that are not happy with that they're not detailed enough. I think in my mind, if Playmates was to announce, and they could still do this is not out of the realm of possibilities, right? As things go, they could still kind of do this. But if they announced kind of like a Black Series like type line that was going to do that with select characters, I think that would be the line that Star Trek fans all across the world have been wanting forever.
Well, and that's what I said a little while ago, is that that's still a possibility. We have all of these different scales of G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, that are in stores coexisting right now. So this could be the launch. And for all we know, they have plans, because even back in the day, we talked about it last week. Listeners, if you didn't listen to last week's episode of the Needless Things podcast, go back and listen to it, for goodness sake. We talked about it last week, that even Playmates did the 4.5 or 5 or whatever inch figures. They did the 9-inch figures. They did 12-inch figures. They did everything. All kinds of different styles. They did like a line of statue type things as well. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that they could expand on this. But I think as far as launching something, this makes me feel good. It's not what I expected, and maybe isn't even quite what I wanted, but I look at it and I see something that is they succeeded at what they were trying to do, which if they had done 6-inch figures that looked like this, I wouldn't feel good about that. If they had done hyper detailed figures that were 5 inches, I wouldn't feel good about that. So I think they've found kind of a middle ground here. And again, I don't think we can put enough emphasis on the fact that this keeps that price point lower than any other line like this that's on the market. And that is very important.
The price range is
because even if these are going to be $15.99 everywhere, well, guess what? All of the other lines that are, adult collector lines, whatever you want to call them, mass market lines, G.I. Joe Classified, Marvel Legends, Masters of the Universe, those are all $22.99 now, probably on their way to $24.99.
Mm-hmm.
$15.99, that's a solid. You can buy, essentially you can get 2 of these guys for one of those guys. I realize that math does not work, but when you're an insane toy person and you're looking at value
in your brain, it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
For some reson that your brain's is like, I could get 2 figures for that.
Yes.
Even though that's not how that math
not
works.
Right at all. No, this is how it works. I would rather spend $30 and get 2 figures than spend $25 and get 1 figure.
That's
how that math works.
Right. I mean, everything else being equal, it depends on the figure, but yes, I understand your point as well. So yeah, very interesting. We got 8 figures in the first line. I can't help but notice too, for a franchise that of course celebrates, diversity, not very diverse in terms of
and that's my one issue. We've barely talked about Michael Burnham, but that's only because neither one of us is a huge Discovery fan as of yet.
Yeah, I certainly don't mean her any slight. Her figure,
no, of course not,
is not great as far as the face. I mean, it's simple, but it's like, man, can they still not do like hair? Like it just seems like it's painted rather than actual hair.
Yeah, I can't quite figure out what's going on with her hairstyle, but it's because we only have this one angle really on the figure, so you can't quite tell what's up. I think the portrait is pretty solid. I love the detailing on the suit. If you notice, it has all of the side panels have all of the little Starfleet logos, just like the actual uniform has.
I like the boots.
It's a nice metallic paint job. The boots are unique. They've got the clasps on the inside right there.
That's probably like the best looking feet of any of the figures.
They've even got the soles, if you notice the paint and the sculpt on the soles of the boots.
Yep.
So
that's what I was thinking.
She's a nice looking figure. It's just I don't have any real attachment to that character as of yet. But You're right. A little more.
That's what I'm saying. Like, throw in a Klingon. I'm shocked that there's not a Klingon in the first wave, because nothing says Star Trek like Klingons to me. But that's I'm not gonna.
I'm gonna have to agree with you. They should have thrown Worf in instead of Riker, because Data android, that's something different, that's something interesting, and who knows what kind of what if he comes with like an alternate head with the little panel that opens up, or like
that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen.
We don't know, because we don't know what the accessories are going to be.
True that.
You're right, Worf would have been better than Riker.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we've got as you said, we've got 8 figures, but we also have a role play item and a starship. Let's talk about the role play item first, because I think we're going to have more to say about the starship. The role play item, if they're smart, this is the exact same tooling they used for the old Playmates phaser, because those were so good, they used them on the show.
Right.
They used the on the what is the episode where Cisco goes back to the original series era?
Trials and Tribulations.
They used the Playmates phasers on the show because they looked so good. Now, I'm looking at this now, and that does not appear to be the case, because if you look at the the grip on it, I believe it's a little bit different, but it still looks pretty darn good. It looks like the smaller mini phaser is detachable.
Yeah, that's something I'm interested in as well. Yeah, I like it. It's not an exact replica by any means. $30, $29.99.
I think it's a good price, dude. If you look at like pop replicas and stuff,
yeah,
$30 for with lights and sounds,
provided that the sounds are like exact.
I think they will be.
There's no excuse for them not to be. Then that does make a big difference, because what it lacks in maybe the look, and it doesn't lack a lot, but it's just enough that I'm like, okay, I know it's not from, I'm not going to mistake this from one that's on the show. That's what
I would go so far as to say, with modern technology, there's no reason this shouldn't sound exactly like, because the one from the 90s sounded pretty darn good.
Well, yeah,
this one with sound chips now.
Yeah, you're right. This should sound, and if that does detach, to have like an old style phaser as well,
I gotta think it does.
Then that's, these phasers, these are classic series. Thank them for doing this one instead of like, because there's been so many since then, and I'll
tell you right now, I own one of the 2009 phasers. I bought it.
The flip one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because it's a fun toy. I hate the design, but it's a fun toy.
But I will say, like, and the phaser has evolved, like over the Next Generation had different like they in the movies they had different phasers, et cetera. But this, to me, and maybe it's just because I'm old and I'm an original, Trek guy, but this is the best phaser, and this is the phaser that I think people think of when they think of Star Trek. This is what it looks like. And I'm really happy with this overall.
I would think, even if somebody wasn't necessarily a Star Trek fan, I would think this would be on most people's top 10 list of like toy replicas or toy guns or whatever. I really do, especially if you're getting specific enough to say, that Playmates one from the 90s. I think most people would be like, oh yeah, that's one of the best toy guns ever made. So yeah. I think for this, this is exciting to see again. And I think $30, I think it's a great price. If you compare it to other things on the market for a licensed light up electronic sound making weapon, that price is right.
The only other concern I have is, and I have to, what it looks like in my hand, because if it's made for like kid hands or it's made for adult hands, there's a difference there.
The 90s one was made to scale for the show, and I can't think why they wouldn't do this the same way.
I'm guessing they would too, but and look, I think with, if you're mind to do so, I think just a little bit of custom paint, you could make this look exactly like one of the ones.
Oh, absolutely. So, which, granted, I don't factor into things like that, and if I did, I would be buying that Ambin rifle and the Boba Fett gun. But but for $30, a little custom work is a little more reasonable proposition.
Absolutely. So
yeah, and that's compare it to that. Look at that $110 Boba Fett gun that isn't even the right colors.
Yeah, that's great.
Why is this you can produce in the correct colors, but Boba Fett's preposterous gun that never existed in any form has to be green and orange? Anyway, why do we keep talking about Boba Fett? It's because I love Boba Fett, Mike Gordon.
Who doesn't?
So, and you're totally right. His armor is like the only reason any of us do love him.
All right.
Or at least it did when we were younger. All right. So the phaser, I think, is a great price. Again, until we have it in hand, we don't know how great it really is, but I'm excited for it. Even though I've got one of the Playmates ones, I'm still excited to get a new version just to see.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a phaser that I would love to. I don't, believe it or not, I don't own a phaser. I had one when I was a kid, I don't have one. I haven't had one in decades.
Now, when you were a kid, though, a Star Trek phaser was literally just a Ruger with a Star Trek sticker on it.
It's not entirely true. The one I remember having was all the all black plastic. So there was no different tones or gray or so.
And here's how much the internet has changed us is because I remember when I was a kid, I had like Star Wars blasters and things like that. I had no idea that there were more than one color in any of those things. If you showed me a Star Trek phaser, I would have been like, yeah, all black is correct. Yeah. Isn't it weird how much of this we know now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks to, now we've got HD. So we can look
HD
at the details, right?
and anytime you want, you can just pick your phone up and go Star Trek phaser and get a picture of the original prop. Whereas when we were kids, like you all you could do is try to catch it on TV and you couldn't pause it.
No.
You couldn't do anything. All you had to do is hope you could get a good enough look at it to know what it looked like. That was it. It maybe Starlog every once in a while would have like the props of Star Trek, and that's all we got.
Yeah. I mean,
so
if you're serious, like, if you show up at Dragon Con and under serious costume rules, right, you're going to have to work on the phaser a little bit.
Yeah.
For anybody else, it's fine. It's great, actually.
Well, and that's the thing, for $30, it's pretty darn good.
And I'm glad to see they included it with this first wave. That means that they are committed to doing more role play type toys.
Yes.
Which I think we talked about it last week, was definitely a big thing of their original lineup.
Well, that was one of the cool things, is that they did the starships, they did the role play items, they did the figures, they did the play sets. Like, it really was an all-encompassing line.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't just doing figures. They weren't just doing one thing. They were doing, like, this is the Star Trek toy line. If you want Star Trek toys, you come to Playmates. There's nobody else, right? Like, we're doing everything. And they did a great job on all of those too. I mean, the ships and the role-playing devices all looked really good and were very playable.
Well, I would say those were the highlights of the line. Those were higher quality than the figures themselves. And to reiterate something that we said last week, that's another benefit of this scale, is if they want to do interactive stuff like the shuttlecraft or play sets, much more reasonable to do it for this scale than for 6-inch scale.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, no question about that.
So let's talk about this Enterprise, because I have a feeling you're going to be much better at sort of spot checking an Enterprise than I am. I have seen online some people are not super satisfied with this. Tell me about this Enterprise toy and how you feel about it.
My first thought for $50 was that, this is the weak link of this first wave.
It's a little too toy looking, isn't it?
That's it. Yes, that's what I was thinking, because that's the one thing about the original ships that they did at Playmates was that they were great replicas, but they were also great toys.
Yes.
So there was that wonderful mix. This seems more leaning towards the toy side than the replica side. Now, I haven't seen any pictures of them without the graphic enhancement of what looks like lighted up. So it's hard for me to tell exactly like what that's going to look like, but I could have done without that. They didn't. I mean, I guess I get it, but
well, I think for the purposes of putting this line over, it is important to give a visual cue that it lights up.
Yes, absolutely. I get it. It's a marketing.
It's thing. Right.
I get it. But for me, I'm like, I'd rather see that without that. But at least,
give me both. Show me what it looks like without that business, and then that, even if this is the primary picture, let me also see it just how it's going to look. But my initial judgment was, because I gushed last week about those Diamond Select ships, and as fantastic as they are, and as much as they look like little props, the Playmate ships weren't that far off of that. But this seems a little more, a good bit more toy to me.
Definitely. I don't see, collectors putting this on their desk or on a shelf or in their office, because it just looks like a toy. It's representative of the original Enterprise, so they are going they're going with the first version of the Enterprise. They're going with the earliest ship. But there's something, and it's probably, I'd probably have to look, but as far as the picture goes, it looks like the saucer section and the nacelles are a little bit off scale. Like in terms, the nacelles look particularly long.
They look
looks a little small, but
the proportions don't seem quite right. Everything seems a little soft, and I think that was one of the things that I loved so much about the original Playmates ones and the DST ones is all of the detailing, all of the lines were very, very, very sharp and angular. And it almost looked like you could put it in front of a Starfield and like it would look like the opening of the show. Like they looked
right.
that good. And also this one has kind of that shiny toy plastic.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I can't blame them for that. I mean, that it is, as you said, they are toys. This is going to be in the toy aisle. It's $50, which seems almost, but I could be the old man in me.
Well, it's 18 inches, which is pretty big. Okay. That's 18 inches right there. That's a good size starship. It's about the same size as the DST ones. And in the current market, $50, lights, sounds, that size, that's really not unreasonable.
Yeah. It's, I'm not as thrilled by this as I was like when I saw when they did their original line of vehicles and everything. When I saw the D Space Nine, I was like, I have to have that.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. I'm not as like in love with this, and that's saying something because I believe that the Enterprise, the original NC-1701 Enterprise, is the best looking starship I've ever seen in my entire life. So I will put that up against any starship that's out there. Now, obviously, that's a completely subjective view, but it's my view. So, I would love to have one of these on my shelf, but not this one. Well, I would love to have an Enterprise on my shelf. I do have an Enterprise on my shelf, but I don't. This one doesn't interest me.
Well, the Diamond Select Toys is the one to get. Period. End of story. I'll tell you what. Let me do this real quick. I'm going to Google some pictures because I'm really curious about these proportions, because you're right. They do seem off to me. Oh, yeah. My gosh. If you Google Enterprise NCC 1701, just do an image search, and none of these pictures are quite this angle.
Right.
But, well, excuse me. Gosh, maybe it's more correct than I was thinking it is.
Well, it is. Yeah, that's the thing. It is. I mean, the Enterprise, the original Enterprise, is a weird looking ship in the sense that, it depends on where the camera angle hits.
Yeah.
It's like it can look completely different. Like if you shot it from underneath, the saucer section looks huge. So I'm taking it at face value that the dimensions are pretty accurate.
And I'm looking now, and there are some pictures where because in my brain, the nacelles, is that the correct pronunciation?
It is. Yep.
Are not as long as they are on this toy.
And yet,
but looking at some of these images from the show, they do look that long.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? We've had this conversation on tons of toy episodes of the Needless Things podcast, where our brains do this weird thing where they create this amalgamation of what we've taken in over the years, and they're not actually accurate.
Right.
And to me, the prime example of this is Bruce Campbell action figures. Because if you look at Bruce Campbell action figures from Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2, they never look right until you go and look at pictures from Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and they are right. It's just that your brain has this distorted image of Bruce Campbell because we've been watching him for the last 40 years. So our brain does not produce an accurate mental picture of a young Bruce Campbell. And I think that's, again, until we have this in hand, we won't know for sure.
No.
But my brain does not conjure up the images that I'm looking at here of the Enterprise. It's a little bit different based on toys that I've had, different angles from the show. The difference just between the show and the motion picture and when I think of the Enterprise, I'm not thinking necessarily of the correct image and proportions because my brain's just kind of jumbling it all together.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is one of those weird things. Now, for someone who's younger, who has only seen a little bit of Star Trek, maybe, and this is a toy that they can play with.
Sure.
This, it's fine. It's not that out of whack. And it's pretty, like, some of the details on this are pretty good. That it's kind of interesting what details they like really paid attention to and what's ones they just said, nah, not this time. But I think the fact that it lights up and the sounds are obviously cool, multiple sounds, of course. It says it's got phrases from the original series as well.
I'm not a fan of that.
I don't know if that's necessary. And I hope it's not one of those like one button and it's just random, or one button and it's in some sort of order. Like it should be a different button for every single sound.
Hopefully,
like, so if I want to fire the torpedoes, I want to be able to press that button and hear torpedoes. If I want to fire phasers.
But that's tricky because how many buttons do you want on this thing? Where do you put them? How do you conceal them in the sculpt? But hopefully they took some lessons from Hasbro's Big Millennium Falcon that has distinct buttons for engine noises, battle noises. There are no phrases. I don't like vehicles that have talking.
Right.
I don't need that. I don't care for it. And Diamonds did that as well, and I'm not a fan of that. All I need are the sounds that the vehicle makes.
Exactly what I want.
If I want, let's slip the dogs of war, I'll say it. I don't need the vehicle to say it.
I don't need the vehicle to talk for me.
But again, until we have this in hand, we've played with it, we've put batteries in it, seen what it does. We won't know for sure. But again, if you subscribe to the Needless Things YouTube channel, you will have all of that information as soon as it is possible.
So looking at the entire line, because that's everything, right?
Yes, that is everything.
I am interested in the configure. I don't think I'm gonna be purchasing any of these other items. What about you? Are you all in or
no? I am not. Well, okay. I say our listeners know how I am. My definites are anything Star Trek 2. I will, as soon as they're available on bigbadtoystore.com, just because that's my preferred online retailer, I will pre-order all the Star Trek 2 stuff, the Enterprise, and the Phaser. Just because the Enterprise and the Phaser are great toys, and we get so few great toys nowadays. We don't get a lot of vehicles anymore, especially with lights and sounds like this. And prop replicas, like I said, look at the Star Wars stuff they're doing. They're like $100. So $30 for a Star Trek Phaser. I've got to check it out, even though I've got the Playmates one right over there. I got to check this out. So I will pre-order anything Star Trek 2 and the Phaser and the Enterprise. And 100%, if I see them in stores on pegs, I'll grab the next generation figures. Because as much as I love those original Playmates ones that I've still got them. These updates, they just appeal to me. I like them. I want to get them out. I want to play with them. I want to check them out. But it's my priority list is what I just said. That stuff. And I'm also dying to see some original series figures. I will be very interested, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit if one of their reveals is basically, as I said, a re-release of that set of the original crew on that bridge packaging.
Wow.
That would be fantastic. And if so, let's say it's the original crew. It's Spock, McCoy, Kirk, Chekhov, Sulu, Uhura, in a really nice window box, and they're all posed on the bridge. If you saw that in a store, would that, in this style, would that tempt you?
It would tempt me. Yes.
As something that you could put on the shelf as is, like, because it's not a plastic bridge, it's all just cardboard, but it's really nicely printed. It has 2 levels. It has the captain's chair with the front level, and then it raises up a level and has the rest of the figures on top behind the rail. Like it's a fantastic looking set that you wouldn't feel the need to open this up. You would just take this box, put it on the shelf, and be like, this is my display.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think that would be a great thing. And you're right, you do have to go. I'm sorry, Mike Gordon, I've kept you too long.
No, it's been fine. It went by so fast, I had no idea.
I didn't even realize what time it was. Mike Gordon, thank you for talking about Star Trek toys. We know we can find you on Earth Station 1, Earth Station Who, which you've got to go to record right now. What are you guys talking about this week?
We are talking about, we're doing a big finish. We're doing the Diaries of River Song set, some episodes of that. It's been great. So without New Who, we're filling the time of with classic episodes, as well as some of the stuff that Big Finish is doing. So it's we still got a lot to talk about. There's always something Doctor Who to talk about. So,
and that's what's so great about Earth Station Who.
Yeah, we miss you, man.
It was nice being back a little while ago, and hopefully I'll be back again sooner than later.
You are always invited, sir. Thank you so much for the invite for this, man. Live long and prosper.
I forgot to mention, and it's kind of dumb, but whatever. While I was talking to Mike Gordon recording this episode, I had my first adult beverage in over 3 weeks because I haven't felt like drinking at all. And I don't drink a ton. I have when we record, I'll have an adult beverage probably a couple times a week. But I just hadn't been up to it. Just the thought of having a little bit of bourbon just had no appeal whatsoever. So I had a little beverage and I had a good time. It was great. So that's how much better I'm feeling. It's once again, it's bourbon time. And I got to say, you guys, I tried a few different things and nothing beats Elijah Craig. All right. So, Needless Things YouTube channel. Obviously, I've been pushing it hard for a while. I am so excited about what I've got going on over there. I just updated one of the little graphical elements of the videos. I'm pretty excited about that. I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. But again, it just takes time to put each little element and figure out how to do it when it's going to happen. Needless Things Facebook group. Go over there. Give us a join. Check out Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast. Yes, that will be next week. I misspoke. In the intro. Next week is Audible Interlude. The week after that is going to be Love Songs, which is right before Valentine's Day is why that's falling where it is. So there you go. And you see, it's hard to keep track of all these things. At some point, we may get back to Audible Interlude being an extra and having weekly episodes of Needless Things. But for right now, this is still just the way my schedule needs to be. So you guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking around. Look forward to Needless Things at a convention near you. I love you guys.
You have been listening to a Needless Things podcast. You can follow Needless Things on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and at needlessthingspodcast.com. Love you. Mean it. Uh-huh.